I say we go ahead and officially get this thing started. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Shine Spotlight webinar series. My name is Josh Kiser. I am the Managing Director of Shine by Carrie Lewis. And today is bonus day. I'm calling this bonus day because we're getting a 2-for-1 deal. Yes, that's right. This is a 2-for-1. We have 2 guest hosts, not just one. They are both accomplished actors and industry pros. They both have experience on faith-based and network sets. So they're going to be discussing differences between the two, how to navigate transitions, and a whole lot more, I'm sure. So I'm not going to spend any time saying all their credits and trying to fill in the blanks for their stories because they're going to do a much better job of that. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to our 2 guest hosts today. 2, that's right, 2 guest hosts today. Yes, they are Shine friends, and they're just amazing, amazing people. And I know you're going to be blessed, and you're going to learn, and you're going to glean, and it's just going to be a really, really good time. You're going to be thankful that you took the time out of your day, whether it's today or whether you're watching it in the future. You're going to be glad that you did. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jenn Gotzon and her husband, Jim Chandler. Welcome, guys. It's all yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Guys, if it's okay, I would like to open us up in prayer since we are a Christian organization. And so
how do you say no to that? Like, why does she even ask, is it okay? How about just say, you know what, I'm going to open in prayer.
Okay, let me practice again. Take 2. I'm going to open in prayer.
Perfect. Way to go.
So, Father, we come to you right now, and we thank you so much that you are Abba, Father. You are the creator. You are the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end, Father. And you created each one of us in your image, and you've given each one of us a hope and a purpose. Plans to prosper us and not to harm us. Father, these are your truths. And Father, sometimes we don't understand your timing in our world, but what we do know is that you love us unconditionally, that you sent your son to die for us. And that is the ultimate gift. Father, move through Jim and me today and allow the artists here in Shine community to be able to ask their questions and that we can pour into them from the experience that you've allowed our journey to go on, that we can help their journey. We thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Excellent.
All right. Very cool.
Cool. So we are going to talk about some stuff. Right. What's first?
Josh wants us to do a little intro of who we are.
Oh, I thought you have asked questions there. So I thought, what does that mean?
We have a little itinerary of what to share about.
Yeah. So we're not asking questions. Okay, great. So you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Or you want to go first?
You can go first.
All right. So as my name is Jim E. Chandler. For those of you that don't know me, I think some of you may. And I am an actor. And I got my start in acting in 2011. Well, I actually started when I was a child. I did plays in school, and then I did drama in middle school and high school. And then in college, I studied theater. And then after I left college, I spent some time exploring myself and my life, and eventually moving to Georgia and decided to look into acting again. And without getting too much into my testimony, but I'll focus on the acting part. And in 2011, I submitted to a small little project that was called The Tortured, and it was a YouTube video done by somebody named Brett Driver and Keith Hodder. And it was the first thing I had ever done as far as a speaking role on camera of any that had some potential. It was a free job. I drove all the way down during the ice storm of 2011 down to Thomaston, Georgia, stayed in a hotel. Me and my dad went together, and I met some people there and worked on the project that are still friends today. And that's kind of a wonderful thing that happened for me. After that, someone who is connected to those people, his name is Clinton Jones, and he goes by the YouTube name Punisher, and he did a series called Cardboard Warfare. Cardboard Warfare 2 was going to be slated to shoot the following or later that year, and I asked him if I could be in it, and he said I had a great look, and that worked. So then I got to be a part of a YouTube video that went extremely viral. It has 10 million views now, and on that project, there was somebody named Olin Rogers. Some of you might know who Olin Rogers is. I'm actually wearing one of his shirts right now. And he started to work with me, and I used to do projects with him. And during that time, I signed with an agent. I got my first job on a network TV show. And the rest is kind of history. So after working with Olin and in the Atlanta market primarily, I was living in Chattanooga at the time, and I booked Drop Dead Diva in 2012, which was my first network show, the first what they call full-scale bookings. And then I continued to work on smaller projects, independent projects, working for free, working for low money, working for no money, students, working in this, working in that. And then I actually didn't have another SAG full-scale booking until 2015. So it took, I got a nice taste of it at the beginning, and then I had to wait 3 more years for another what they would call a legit booking or full-scale booking. And it was a commercial in Georgia, and then I stayed focused. I kept doing it, and then I got cast on a show on NBC. And then from there, the following spring, it aired, and before it aired, cast in a pilot by ABC. They didn't pick the pilot up. It would have been a recurring role, so it would have been really cool if it had happened, but that's okay. And then after that fall, I was continuing to stay active in film and stuff, and began working on crews so I could stay close to set and learn about how the operations were so that I could be a more well-rounded filmmaker, actor, all of that. So then in fall of 2016, I auditioned for a show called Stranger Things, and I got that one. So then I had 2 days on that, and I was in season 2. That was great. And then all of a sudden, the persistence, just staying to it, training, working hard. I moved to New York. I started to train at a studio. Me and Jen got married, and in the fall of 2017, in the span of 2 months, I booked 2 recurring roles, one on BET and one on AMC. And so I was like, whoa, this is great and really cool. And so the following summer, what was it? That was 2018. In 2018, I booked another thing on TBS. And so I've been extremely, extremely blessed and fortunate to be a part of some really cool projects. Most recently, all throughout that time, I was also doing smaller independent films and things of that nature. And then in 2019, we produced our movie. And I was in Georgia at the time, and I booked a movie called Inheritance, and that stars Lily Collins and Simon Pegg. It's supposed to come this month, but it has been delayed because of COVID-19, understandably so. And I shot that while doing pre-production for our movie. And then I did, what was next? And then we shot our movie, and we came back up here. And then, that last fall, I booked the TV show MacGyver, so I played a role on that. And this year, I was very lucky and blessed to book another feature film. So now I have another film that was postponed due to COVID, but it's supposed to start back up. Hopefully it will as soon as we're able to. So that has been my journey. Me and Jen worked on some projects, and I wanted to focus on the secular market. Those are the secular things that I've done, but I have done faith-based stuff, but Jen has absolutely crushed it in the faith-based world, and actually dabbled in some other projects as well. So I'll turn it over to her. And so that basically sums up my career as far as secular bookings and working on large sets. Like those are 60, 70 person crews sometimes, but okay, go.
So I was born, and now I'm 41. I just had a birthday. And through those 41 years of my journey, I started when I was 15. And I remember going to a movie in my hometown. It was a 1-screen theater. And then the movie is actually Straight Talk with Dolly Parton. And I felt this passion, this electricity that just burned inside of me during the end of that movie, that I wanted to do that for other people. Now, I didn't really know what that was as a 15-year-old, but as I started to get older and growing, I realized what it was. I wanted to be on stories that could really inspire someone's soul and make an impact and a difference in their life. And that became a very clear vision for me, probably when I was about 18, 19. And that became my trajectory of how I went out looking for projects and praying for projects. I remember every night before I went to sleep, I would pray. I would actually pull the curtain in my head and I would pray. And I said, Lord, please, I want to be on projects that are able to glorify you. And these big projects, I just pray, God, open up roles for me as an actor. And that was prayer every night when I was a teenager and into my 20s. And so I became someone who was so passionate about wanting to learn how to act. And so I had a drama teacher in high school tell me that I didn't have enough talent to make it as an actor. And I really struggled with getting lines off the page. I would hold a script and I would be nervous and the words would almost flip in my mind, almost like I have a little bit of dyslexia. And then I would look up to the actor, I'd lose my place, and I would look down and I'd lose my place on the script. And that was my experience when I was in high school. So I went to 1 year of community college and I learned a piece of information that's false. And I want to move forward on my credits before I go into all these little tangents. But this drama teacher told me that to be a good actor, you must be able to cry on cue. And I say that, and that's false information as an artist. You want to be clear in your actions, clear in your behavior. Having emotional range and access to your emotions is very, very, very important, but it doesn't make you a good or bad actor. In fact, just as a 30-second note, it is more compelling to sit on your emotion. I'm going to try to do a quick drop in. So if you have emotion building up inside of you, it is not effective to be on screen and cry and just cry and just cry and just cry saying your dialogue. But what it is effective is to sit on that emotion and work so hard not to cry as you talk to the other actor in that scene. And then when the moment just bubbles over, it's okay to then let the emotion out. But you want to overcome that emotion and fight to be able to suppress it down. And that is something that I learned when I was younger. And I want to encourage all of us as artists that if you learned false information, you need to find the balance for you as an artist to be able to know how to apply it moving forward in your career. So I ended up going into all my education and I studied for probably over 9 years with a focus on how do I access my emotions. Now that muscle is very active inside of me because of that, but I also learned from all my teachers. I went to the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts in New York City, their summer program, their 2-year program. I moved to Los Angeles. I went to the Joanne Baer and D.W. Brown studio, went through their 2-year program, their master class. Then I studied with Clay Banks for several years on extreme close-up, which is being in a frame that is like this. And then I studied with several other teachers in different niche particulars, went then back to New York City, and Jim and I studied at Matthew Korzine's studio. And so it's been an ongoing journey of study. What in the world does this have to do with faith-based in my journey? I wanted to share about my background, a little bit about education, because I believe education is very, 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 very important. We must learn how to access our tools. So my prayer was to inspire and impact people's lives through film. That was what my prayer was. And I went to Los Angeles and I worked background work for about, I would say 3 years. I was almost a professional background artist as a Screen Actors Guild member, and I got my health insurance. And I also got upgraded and featured on several of those projects. And I learned a lot about being on a big production set. And I also worked as a stand-in, and I learned so much about lighting and cameras. Then in 2008, one of those movies that I was an extra on was a movie that was nominated for 5 Oscars. I played Trisha Nixon in a movie called Frost Nixon. And I had a prayer team praying for me that I would be upgraded. And I had 5 days on that movie. And on the last day, Ron Howard upgraded me and gave me lines, and I became on an official contract. That movie, that small role, and the testimony behind it is really phenomenal. But I want to stay focused on the work so we could get into it to be able to help you. That movie, I brought in, God brought in my life a publicist, and he had this vision on how to be able to launch my career. During this time, I was doing short films, and I was winning awards for some of these short films. And he then coupled Frost Nixon as Trisha Nixon in the Short Film Awards, and that is what catapulted my journey, where a movie called Doonby that stars John Schneider, Ernie Hudson, Jennifer O'Neill, Robert Davi, the producer was following my career through the 168-hour film festival. And he said, wow, I think we should give Jenn this role because she is growing and rising on her career, and she would be less expensive. And so when they sent the offer over, I almost fell over because I never saw numbers like that before on a piece of paper. And it was a direct offer, and that was in 2010. That year, I was direct offered 4 feature films, and then one I auditioned and worked really hard for. And then my journey just continued year after year after year since 2010 with the same staple, being able to inspire and impact people's lives. And those were on faith-based movies. And so since then, like if I go on Amazon Prime, sometimes I lose count because I'm trying to count all the titles. I think it's 28 movies right now on Amazon Prime that if you type my name in the search engine, see all these movies come up. I would say 95% of them are all faith-based. And so I've really became really confident in this faith-based market, and just would love to be able to help you understand how to navigate it. So that's a little bit about me.
Cool.
And so what we would like you to do through our time, our session today is talking about navigating network television, which Jim is going to speak on, navigating faith-based films, that's what I'll speak on. And we're going to talk a little bit about the culture of what it is like on both of these different sets. We are then going to talk about boundaries on how you should be setting up good, healthy boundaries for yourself. And then we're going to talk about booking for faith-based films and booking for network, how you can actually go about and learn how to get booked in these projects. Alrighty, and along the way, Josh, I would say interrupt us if there's a question so we could field questions as we go through this process. Okay? Cool. Alrighty, on that note, why don't we talk a little bit about the culture?
So set culture in general on network productions. I'll have to be honest, is that I've only been on smaller scale Christian films. So I have to compare what I've experienced on the smaller scale Christian films to what I've experienced on full scale, multi-million-dollar to, as well as like, I mean, YouTube videos and stuff are just completely, they're, the market, of course. So, but the main thing, I'll talk about it in the perspective of what it's like for me as a believer to go to the set. And one thing I want to dispel that is for my experience is that, yes, we hear a lot of things about Hollywood and how it's corrupt and it's bad. And, in a lot of ways, a lot of those things are extremely true and very true. And I don't want to diminish that is true. But the one thing that I have continually noticed whenever I am on a set is the amount of professionalism, the amount of kindness, the amount of people there are there to do the work. And because you got to remember, all of these people on a professional set, unless they're a production assistant, they're a member of a union. So they've gotten to where they've gotten because of their hard work and because of their professionalism. Now, outside of that realm, there are individuals in the Hollywood culture or in the secular culture, network culture, that may be outspoken in certain areas of what we would call the culture wars, or, secularism and that kind of thing. And that's kind of its own thing. But on the set, I have several stories and instances of me being able to share who I am and be vulnerable with people about my journey and why it's important that I was on the set, and what God has brought me through and what I've overcame in my life because of my my journey to get to where I was. And I've had that opportunity to share that message, not in a, I guess, like the preachy way, the thing that we always try to, the thing we try to avoid in faith-based films is the preachy films. But to show up and to be able to be comfortable to be myself, and to know that there's not going to be a lot of ridicule, or anything of that nature. And just to share about who I am as a person, what it was like for me to be here. And a lot of times that would happen in the makeup trailer, because that's where you spend the majority of your time, except for when you're on set working, especially when you're booking the roles that I was booking in early on in my career. It's usually I'm on set for a half a day. So, the place that I would have the most amount of time to talk to people is in the makeup trailer, because you go from hair and makeup, or hair and makeup to wardrobe. Well, it depends on how they have it organized, but you go from one chair to another, right? So, and one of the jobs I had to do, I was actually getting completely done up with blood and stuff, because I had actually played a dirty cop and I got shot in the face. Really cool. And, but I say that because I met somebody on that set that I was able to just talk to while he was doing my hair, doing my makeup. And he was a prominent makeup artist. And he was the personal makeup artist for Tom Hanks. He's done Angelina Jolie, and he's done all these other wonderful, accomplished actors. And I'm sitting here talking to him about my journey as a human being, and about why God is so important in my life, and why it's so great that I'm here. Like, I get misty thinking about it, because, and he may not have necessarily been a believer, but he had a spiritual connotation about him, and he appreciated the fact that I was sharing with him, and that I was on this journey, and he wanted to stay in touch with me, and we kept in touch. We've fallen out of touch since, but that's just an example of how the culture that we have as Christians is not necessarily shunned on a set, but it's all about how we approach people, and about our approaching from a place of, do I need to flash my Christianity, or do I need to just be who God has created me to be, and share how my journey has gotten me to where I am, and why I'm so thankful there. So it's so funny, because he was on that project, and then 2 years later, makeup artist on that ABC pilot, we got to reconnect again and share. And he was actually trying to help me find a place in New York when I was moving up here. Like, we had a relationship. I should reach out to him actually and just say, I just wanted to check in. Hope you're well. And not seeing each other and that kind of thing has kind of made it difficult, because a lot of times, as many of you know, sets are kind of like movie camp, or like summer camps, because like they last for about a short period of time, and then everybody goes away, and everybody promises to keep in touch, and nobody does. And that is like, it's not quite the instance in the independent faith-based market. I know that a lot of people stay in touch, and I've stayed in touch with a lot of people, and so has Jenn over the years. That was kind of the culture. The one other thing is that we can't expect everybody to be like Jesus when we encounter people in the world. It's our culture has to come and, be in the environment, but not, I don't know how to describe what I'm saying. It's just to bring it in and let it blend into it without diminishing what the core values are of our faith. I know certainly one things that you don't want to do is to call people out for doing wrong, like just so things like that, because you're there because you're supposed to be there, and the production, the people who decided for you to be there are not even on the set. Like, they're in offices, and except for the director, So just know that I've had wonderful experiences in the network culture, and everybody, for the most part, I have had some instances where I was actually ridiculed, or not ridiculed, but I was wearing a shirt that he is greater than I, and it's a math equation. It's from a friend that gave it to us, and somebody asked me, "What is that?" I said, "Well, it means that I believe that God is greater than me." And then he put me on guard, because he was like, "Well, why is God a guy? Why does he have to be a he?" And it made me think, oh, you know what? I need to be like, contact the RZIM, God rest his soul, Ravi Zacharias. But like, I need to go figure out what kind of an answer that is an apologetic answer, so that I can have a conversation with that. So what it did was it gave me an opportunity to strengthen my faith. That happened a while ago, but so that's just. But what I did was I went straight up to him and I asked for his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Jim." Instead of turning away from him, I went to him in an effort to develop a relationship with him, even though there was a bite on him, there was something on him, and we all have encountered that kind of thing in different areas of culture. And he was a grizzled grip, but he knew what he was doing. And after making that simple gesture, it then became a "Hey, how you doing?" instead of a combative thing. There was an opportunity for me to open up and to try to develop, forge a relationship with him. And, I didn't see him very much after that. I was actually a production assistant, and it was on The Plot Against America, the HBO show. That was a huge set. But I was a production assistant because I'm not constantly working. I gotta find places where I can be on set. But so I don't know if I have a beginning, middle, and end to what I'm discussing, but I think that it's just,
what about what set actually looks like for a network?
For one, they're extremely organized for the most part that I've been a part of. Some of the independent films that I did starting out that were not, actual network jobs were not very organized. I've discovered that networks have similar protocols, as each set is very similar. Whereas, the film sets, they can vary. You can hear different stories of things, but they can still be what's considered full scale. But the network's TV shows, they're so well funded that everything is in place. As soon as you get there, this would be a good thing. Let me see. Okay, yeah. The first thing that happens when you arrive on a network set is once somebody identifies you as a principal actor, all of a sudden they go, "Oh, okay," and then all of a sudden you get okay, this person needs to get to set. They're important. And that's where these people care about me because I'm part of the story, and they have to get me to where I need to go. And it's this very interesting feeling that can be mesmerizing. And I think the main thing is just to maintain an aura of gratitude, because that's the one thing I try to do, is just be so appreciative and thankful of all the drivers and everybody, because there's somebody there to pick you up from your car, and then there's somebody and as soon as you get there, they take you to your room and they get you your contracts, and you go over everything, you sign it, and you wait 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 in this little room that's 3 feet by about 8 feet, and it has a small bed, a toilet that doesn't work because they have the honey wagon, and a mirror. And when you get there, your clothes are already hanging up and ready for you. So there's just a semblance of a boom, boom, boom. So it's becomes a process. And the first team PA is there to assist you. And a lot of times, if they're kind of in a hurry, they'll say, "Breakfast is up. What can I get you?" And you can say whatever you want, and the chances are that they're going to be able to bring it back to you because they have a full-on catering system. So it's just it's incredible the amount of money that gets poured into these things. And you have your sides, you review them, and you can step outside your trailer and hopefully meet your scene partners, because they're probably going to be in similar in the honey wagon, as they call it. And you can go over your lines, and it's just, you meet people the same way that you would meet people in other places. And then when you get to set, you might do a walkthrough or a blocking rehearsal before you even go through hair and makeup. I've done that a couple of times, where the first thing you do is, in your street clothes, you go do a blocking rehearsal with the director while they're setting up for the first shot of a different scene, possibly, unless you're first up. And you get an idea of what you're going to do before you even start. So it's blocking usually not usually, sometimes happens before you even get changed and go through the works, as they call it. And when you're on set, you're there to work. A lot of the roles that I started out with, a couple of them had a little bit of meat on the bones, and some of them didn't. But just listen to the director, and everybody's so professional, and everybody treats you so kind and so nice, and that's been my experience. And when you're done, you wrap and you shake the director's hand, or you say goodbye, and then you don't have time to go around and thank everybody because they're in the process of moving. So you just, all right, that's it. And then you get escorted back, you change, and then they get the driver, and you get home, and then in a matter of 5 hours, you're done. And as my career progressed, I began to actually be on the sets long enough to where I could develop relationships with people apart from getting to know hair and makeup folks. So that's how it's gone. When I worked on the AMC show I was on, I had 4 days on the episode that I guest starred on. And I got to really know the first team PA and got to really work closely with the director. I actually had a day of rehearsal, which was kind of rare. A lot of times you don't do any rehearsing apart from just the camera rehearsals that might be before an actual take. But everybody was just lovely. Like I haven't had a bad set experience on a network set. I've gotten to work with some amazing directors. I've gotten to work with some amazing talent, and everybody has been generous. Acting is about giving, and being a Christian is about giving. So those two things go hand in hand. But yeah, I've struggled with something that has had to help my faith grow with being on those network shows. And I'll wrap up with this so Jen can talk. I'm going too long, but is suffering what they call imposter syndrome. Like they're going to figure out that I'm not a good actor and that I'm not even supposed to be here. Like on my first big role that was on the BET show, where I had 4 days on that show too. And I was like, holy cow, this is like, there's more to this than I've experienced. But I was able to have a support group. So it's important that on your network site, I was married to Jenn at the time. So I was able to reach out to her and get prayer and power through it with the help. So I talked for about 10 minutes, Jenn. So you can do the same, and that'll put us at 3:45.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, I hope that helps. Please ask questions. Yeah.
I see a question. Josh, do we have a question?
We do. So we do. It's Ryan has asked, what would be the best advice on how to analyze a script to portray the character role you are playing? Ryan must be, that's a good question, right?
Yeah, so script analysis. It's something that I actually teach in depth. So how do we sum up some tools for you in a brief period of time? Let me think here. First, when you read the script, you're going to want to read the script 3 different ways. You want to put on your investigator hat. Your first time you read the script, you want to read it as if you are the audience watching the movie or the TV show or the commercial or the stage play, and allow your emotional, your logic, your creativity to just start to imagine what this looks like. This will help you with comprehension on how to enter into the scene to really break it down. The next, this is my process. Everyone has a different process. The next would be to read it from your character's perspective. Now you're reading the dialogue as if you are in that scene and allowing your imagination to start to take over, and then write notes down based on your instincts that you're experiencing. Notice I'm not focusing on the dialogue and memorization of lines. That's what an amateur actor will do. They'll pick up a script, and the only thing they're doing is focusing on memorization of lines. Memorization is almost you have to do it simultaneously, but that's not where the art is. The art is not in memorization. The art is in the creative substance and what you create underneath the body. Then the third thing, how you can script, is read it as if you were a fly on the wall. what are the other characters saying about you? Oh, that person is so pompous. My gosh, they are the sweetest thing in the world. You know, they're such a pushover. Those are huge cues that you create in your behavior. So those things happen in other scenes that your character is not a part of most of the time. This is if you have a lead role or a predominant role. If you have a day player role, most likely you're not going to get that type of juice in the script. That would be one way I would suggest going about it.
Perfect. Great.
Okie dokie. Cool. Faith-based culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very honest to be able to say that there are 3 tiers of faith-based films. And I've had the blessing to be able to work on all of them. I'm going to briefly touch on them. There are the faith-based films that have no budget, or they have a couple $1,000s, or they have $20,000. And within this small budget, they bring in all their friends, and their friends are talented in the crew, and they are doing favors and working for volunteer rates, and you make a beautiful product some of the times. And then some of the times, because you don't have the budget, you don't have the time or the talent of resource to actually create a really good looking film that when you put the images up to a studio film that Jim has been on, they look different. And that's some of the reasonings why. Now, the second tier are SAG ULB. ULB stands for ultra low budget. And that's about $250,000 or less. Now, when you're in a SAG ULB, you are still moving very quickly on set, but they do have resources to be able to hire a proper crew who has the talent to know how to execute. A lot of times on these SAG ULB projects that I've worked on, you are shooting sometimes 8 to 10 pages a day. That's a lot of pages a day. On a network show, you're shooting 3 pages a day. So now on some of the films that are no budget, I've been on those sets where we shot 15 to 20 pages a day. And if you're the lead actor and you have to memorize all those lines and handle the creative arc of everything, and those sets, they don't have a wardrobe person, so you're handling your own wardrobe, you're handling your own makeup, you're handling your own continuity, and your brain on these faith-based sets that are low to no budget, your brain has to be on continuity. What was I just doing in this scene? What was my clothing? You are responsible for selecting your clothing for each scene. You are responsible for managing when that scene, all of a sudden you're in that same look. Later on another day of shooting, you have to remember all of that. You have to remember how your hair looked. You have to do your hair. You have to do your makeup. And this is what's very common. My first film, Julie and Jack, we had about 3 people on that crew. I didn't know any different. I was 19 years old. I was living in San Francisco, and we filmed all over these areas. And now I look back going, whoa, I would have to go to Macy's and go shopping for my own wardrobe. And now that's a no budget film. SAG ULB, you have a crew. You have a wardrobe person. They're the ones who will contact you most of the time in SAG ULB to say, what is your clothing that you own? We are going to pull from your own closet. If you don't own something, they're then going to buy that clothing for you. Now, when Jim works on network shows, wardrobe pays for all of his clothing. They just get his sizes.
Sometimes they give you underwear.
Truth.
I'm just telling you. It's
truth. I also received underwear too when I was on Frost Nixon, and so I was funny. Like, what is this?
Well, they know your sizes. So.
Faith-based movies, you ain't getting underwear, ladies and gentlemen, unless you have an accident and then they need to help you out. Okay. Now, big scale faith-based films, several million-dollar faith-based films. I had the blessing to be on a movie called God's Not Dead 2. That movie rolled just like the sets that Jim was talking about. When you show up to a parking lot where you have a place where you are going to park. Then you get shuttled into base camp. Base camp is where you see all of these trailers. Each trailer has a different purpose. One trailer is hair and makeup. You walk in, hair is on one side, makeup is on the other side of the trailer. Then there's a trailer that has different compartments in it. Those are where the actors are in holding. Then there's a trailer that's only set to bathrooms. That's called the honey wagon. Then there is a trailer that's for the production office. And so when you show up, if you've never been on a set like this, these trailers can overwhelm you because you're like, where do I go? How do I navigate this? And it can get you in your head and make you nervous. On a no budget feature film, you ain't getting trailers. You even ain't getting a room to be able to prepare it. So on SAG-ULBs, it's required that the actor has a private room to change in and to be able to prepare their role in. So those are some physical differences between the different tiers.
Just a note,
yeah.
you can agree to share a space or to interchange a space, that kind of thing on if you're on a low budget, ultra low, because you have to understand that they're doing everything they can. They can't afford a three-room trailer or anything like that. So just FYI.
Yeah.
Don't go onto a ULB set and start saying, hey, where's my room? You know, just go with the flow on that set.
Yeah.
That would be, oh, sorry.
Yeah. The one thing that is very unique about faith-based films, you cannot assume that everyone on that set is Christian. You cannot assume that. I've been on one of the movies, God's Country, I was on. There are 2 Christians on that set.
Wow.
And that set was run very secular. It was also, there was a lot of difficulties. There was a lot of obstacles. There was a lot of tension. It was SAG-ULB, but it was a very hard environment to work in. Now, there's another movie that I was on called Alone Yet Not Alone. That one then was nominated for an Oscar later on for Best Song and then rescinded. You guys might have heard about it. This set was filled with Christians. Everyone on that set, from crew to cast, were believers. And George Escobar was our director. And before scenes, we would pray together. And one of the scenes, my character was being burnt at the stake, and I needed to show and be filled with the radiance of God's joy while the flame is coming. And George and I came and we just prayed for the Holy Spirit to move through. Now, there's other sets that I've been on in the Christian world where you will have a prayer circle before you begin shooting, and you pray together as a unit for the covering of the film. The movie that we produced, we had a prayer group each morning where we did morning devotions. So anyone who wanted to come would be able to read the Bible, do a devotion. We would have a little sermon to be able to get everyone set up in the day. And we would write down prayer requests on a note card. And then we would write down praise reports of what God was doing. We had an active prayer team that was led by Susan Shear. And we had, I don't know if it was 30 to 50 people on that was on our call sheet, which is the sheet you get as the crew member or the actor, that during that set, if there was any obstacles you were struggling with, you would send a prayer out, and that would go to our prayer team, and their job was to intercede and pray for you. That was something that is also very unique about the faith-based culture. Okay. I'll zipit.com and see if there's any questions.
I wanted to just add on to that is that there are secular companies making faith-based movies. So there are people who may be cultural Christians in a way, but they may have crews that, like Jen described, where everybody on the, the director, you, and maybe somebody else on God's Country. Yeah. But somebody else, even you can probably experience this on a faith-based set too, but like, just so you know, like they so that happens as well. So you have a secular culture making a Christian film, and sometimes they might do things that don't seem like, hey, this doesn't really work for the story, or that doesn't make sense. Why would that isn't really how Christians behave.
I have a story. Go ahead. So the movie My Daddy's in Heaven.
Right.
One of the producers, really amazing man, wonderful human being, not a Christian, but he understands Christianese a little bit. So we had a scene, and he goes, you know what we need? We need a prayer circle. And so T.C. Stallings, I played the lead in this movie. Jim was in the movie as a police officer, and T.C. Stallings was coming off the bus to be able to help a man who went into a. And so right then and there, because the producer said we need a prayer circle, you're being obedient to the direction, and we put a prayer circle together that was completely authentic or organic, but because he knew it would sell to a Christian audience, that was the motivation behind the prayer circle. So us as artists, we needed to do what we could do to make that truthful and honorable in our faith. And My Daddy's in Heaven, we had several Christians on that movie set, but most people weren't. But amazing people. And My Daddy's in Heaven, the Nassers produced it, and they are wonderful, wonderful people to work for. Wonderful professional set. Yeah. So, okie dokie.
And one thing I'll add is to our secular or network culture and faith culture with our film is that we were an ultra low budget film, but we wanted to do everything we could to make it feel bigger than it was as far as the professionalism on set, having drivers and utilizing people that are willing to help you out with the friends, and having hot meals 3 times a day. And I actually was able to rent a utility trailer that had a makeup room, which is rare on an ultra low budget set, is to have a trailer. And I was able to secure one through networking on the other film I worked on. And but I wanted to do everything I could because of my experience on those network sets. Like, I know what it feels like to come to set. So then as a filmmaker and producer, I wanted everybody that came to that set to have the experience of, wow, they were well put together. This is a faith-based project that has their resources in order. They have the organization. They're exemplifying professionalism as well as godliness. And when you do that, it just makes the talent feel that much better. We had Corbin Burnson and John Schneider on that set, and I wanted to make sure that when they approached or when they were on set, along with any other actor, that they were greeted the same way that you would be greeted on something that you would usually, or that you would normally equate to a full-scale or network set. Okay.
Awesome. So I see some questions.
Well, do you want to go through? Well, never mind. I don't know if we're going to do boundaries or if that's.
I wanted to speak. We need to.
I want to be mindful of the time. That's the only reason why. We can talk forever. I don't want to. I don't know if boundaries need to be talked about, or if
this
is. Or should we go to booking?
How about you share, ask a question or two,
okay,
and we'll try to be very brief with our answers, so we are able to touch as many people as we can.
That sounds good. Listen, this is all really, really, really good. So, I mean, I appreciate that you're paying attention to time, but when it's this good and we have this many questions rolling in, they're doing that. They're engaged because it is so good. So let's hit a couple real quick here, and we'll see.
Okay.
So we have. I'm looking for ideas to begin my journey. This is Edwina, and she says she's been an extra in a faith-based film and wants to gain more experience. Any advice?
The first thing is Edwina. Am I saying her name correctly?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, beautiful name. You're going to want to come with a servant attitude and serve however you can. There's a community in Los Angeles called the 168, our film festival community, and they have once a year a film competition. What's great about this, it's all Christian, it's based on a scripture verse from the Bible, but there are many, many, many filmmakers that need crew, and to be able to even serve and volunteer on a crew level will give you opportunity to develop those relationships. 168, you'll have to learn when the festival is. I would suggest signing up for the newsletter because then you'll know when it comes up. 168project.com, and then you can look in your area if there's any films happening, or you can produce your own film. We have these really clever, cool things called iPhones, and the technology on them is slam and jamming. You're not gonna get all of the focus pools and camera things, but what you are gonna be able to do is be able to use your creativity to be able to create and gain more experience. Those would be 2 tips I would say.
Yeah, and if you're in your local community, if you're looking to become an actor and you're looking to try and progress a career, and if you've done the extra work and you enjoy doing the extra work, it's to just go to that local community theater or to find a local university and try to tap into their film department and say, hey, I want to help out any way that I can, whether it be extra or I can audition or anything like that. But community theater can be great because you can learn the basics, some of the basic skills of acting, so that you can just start. You have to start somewhere, and everybody deserves a chance. And you also have to be willing to put in the work. And it could take some time before you're ready to be on to be a principal in something. Keep doing that and find ways to volunteer. And we don't know where you're from, so but yeah, so just that would be what I would say. Or if you're
we're gonna talk. Hopefully, we'll have time to talk about how do you book in these areas.
For sure.
And so during that section of our talk, I'm gonna point my ideas for you as well. Okay.
Awesome, thank you. Next question: what do you look for in a good agent?
Well, it depends on where you are. It's the first one that'll take you. No, I'm just kidding. In some regards, that is a correct answer because, if they are, if you're in a market that is a non-union state like Georgia, the Southeast, then you're going to want to find somebody who's a SAG registered agent, SAG signatory agent, and then that they're a little bit more legit. Most agents are, and any legit agent in a place like California or New York, they have to be registered. They have to be SAG agents in order to submit to SAG projects. But that'll let you know that they're professional. Gosh, it's just, if you have the opportunity to interview or go to an open call, like you'll be able to try and see what kind of relationship is going to work for you. Cause it's a business relationship. So just to explore that. And it's kind of hard for me to answer that without understanding where somebody's at in their journey.
Yeah.
Cause it's like, yeah, go ahead.
Let me bounce some ideas over here. A lot of times us as actors, we think the agent is responsible for getting us work. In my journey, if I count up all the different credits that I've done, and they're not all listed on IMDb, I'm way over 100 projects I've worked on. Out of all those projects, I had one booking from an audition from an agent through a commercial. And that might be the only booking I've gotten from an agent.
Yeah, that's a great.
So I have hustled, I have prayed, I've gone to film festivals, events, developed relationships, nurtured relationships, served, and grew a body of work through those relationships. I've submitted on Actors Access. Now the agent, any agent, if you have a good headshot, a working headshot, and this is what the Shine community, Glennis and Carrie, are going to dial you in to get excellent photography done on yourself. That headshot is your gatekeeper to getting an audition. So if you have an agent and you're not getting auditions, most likely it's your headshot that's not working. It's not the agent. Okay? So those would be some tips.
So basically, when you're starting out, you are your agent. So how much work are you willing to put in doing the Actors Access, backstage, developing your craft, taking classes, doing things like this, like these types of events? They happen online now, but they also happen in person, and they probably will once we get past this pandemic.
I have another point. I've had representation since I was 15 and have wonderful relationships with every one of them. Later on in my career, I started looking for an agent that was very kind and loving and honorable to the filmmaker, because I would get a direct offer and I wanted to make sure that that filmmaker felt honored, especially in the faith-based film market. And so I had one agent not negotiate Bookga. They just took the offer. I had another agent who didn't negotiate. And then I had one agent that was a really good negotiator and was kind and was awesome. I had one agent that didn't respond to a filmmaker, and I lost a job from a direct offer. So you want to make sure that you are, when you get working, that you have a good relationship and rapport with how they're treating the other party.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at time. Josh, did you have another question, or should we move on?
That's all right. We have 14 waiting questions. So some of them are short though, so we'll try to go through them real quick.
Okay.
This is Kenneth. Kenneth actually met you both at AMTC in 2016.
Hi, Kenneth.
Kenneth wanted to know what was the name of the Los Angeles studio? Was it Brown that you said that you studied?
It was the Joanne D.W. Brown Studio. It's a Sanford-based studio that is studied and schooled through how you teach how you teach Meisner. Many teachers say they've studied with Meisner, but they don't know how to teach Meisner. Joanne Barron went through many, 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 many years of training how to teach, and you cannot be a teacher at that studio if you do not study on how to teach for over 5 years. So the craft that's getting delivered is.
Wow, awesome. Okay, great. Anna wants to know, do you have any tips on auditioning? She gets so nervous that she can't speak. Her knees shake, her heart feels like it's going to explode. She just wants a couple tips to maybe help her in that auditioning process.
I don't do a lot of in-person auditioning. Most of it's on tape, except in New York I do it. And hey, I experienced the same thing that you experience, where you start to feel like you're standing on the edge of a cliff. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's coming. And give yourself some grace when you're experiencing that, and but then figure out how you can utilize that into what you need to bring to the audition itself. And some ways to combat it. Jen can go into some exercises that might be able to help you. But the thing, oh man, I had a thought and I lost it.
I'll share it while you're thinking. Ahead. So one of my friends would always say, this is a quick tip, and then I'll show a little bit more detailed tip. If you're feeling nervous, well, guess what? Allow your character to also feel nervous. Right. So you're taking that nerve and transitioning into the character. Now, a detailed tip. This is something I teach on, and it's about a 10-minute exercise on breathing, grounding, experiencing the peace that surpasses understanding from the Holy Spirit to move through your body. So you're taking all of your tension and you're giving it to God and trusting that God is going to move through you as an artist. Then once you're in that space, you then take your focus, and this is a Sanford Meisner principle and a Christian principle. You put your focus completely on that other person, the reader, and you're entering into your imaginative mind. The more imaginative and creative you are, the stronger you're going to feel and the less nerves is going to happen. You also need to train your voice to connect with your breath, to connect with your emotional center. So if you take a breath right now, now if you connect to an emotion that your character's feeling, and you connect your breath to your voice, you're going to start to resonate through. Again, these are things that take work to really train and develop muscle memory, which is 2,000 times of repetition. And so I train on this regularly, but those would be the quick little boop, boop, boop tips for you.
Yeah, what I was going to say was that set up mock auditions with your friends if you can. Obviously, it's kind of hard right now, but like set up the scenario that you've experienced and, go through it. The other thing is to find an auditioning course specifically that actually practices auditions. If you're in Atlanta, there is one there. I don't know where you are, so I can't recommend something. But if you can find one where what they do is they send you an audition request through the email, and then you get prepared, you show up and you go in and go through the whole audition process with the instructor. And then you can actually sit down and everybody watches each other's tapes. It's really helpful, so that it can also help you see, like, hey, I'm doing all right. Everybody else is just as terrible as I am, or just as good, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that can be really helpful.
That's a really good tip.
That would be my recommendation.
That's a great tip. Great tip. Ryan wants a quick tip on how to practice embracing your character. So he hears about how he watches interviews and actors speak on that, on embracing their characters. And he wanted to know if there was a quick tip on how a beginner can practice embracing.
You're going to want to enter into your imagination and create. And if you find yourself, if you're doing a daydream creating, you're not able to stay focused because you're distracted, get a journal and create on the journal. When you're writing, it's going to allow your streamline of thought to stay focused. The next thing you're going to want to do is identify 3 character attributes of the character. And then you're going to want to embody them. Walk through your space, go outside to the grocery store, go to church, embodying those attributes of your character, because when you bring them out into real life, you have to be real. Otherwise, you look crazy. So it teaches your body how to develop what's called muscle memory. And those would be a very basic, very simplistic way on how to be able to, for a beginner, to start to connect to a character.
Good.
Awesome. Fantastic. Susan Willis, she wants you to kind of remember back to both of you when you were maybe on your first real, quote unquote, real set or first big booking. And how did you learn to compose yourself to being the new kid on the block, where it seems like everybody already knows the drill and knows what they're doing, and you are feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm the new kid. How do I not stand out?
Yeah, for me, my situation was a little unique in the sense that, like Jen, I actually did extra work when I first started working, and I worked as an extra on Drop Dead Diva before I signed with an agent. As soon as I signed with the agent, I stopped doing extra work and focused on auditioning. And when I booked it, when I got to set, it was already a set I was familiar with. So there was actually people on the crew that were still on that season. There was actually some of the same background actors. So I was really ushered in the kind of a celebratory manner with, like, the guy who was the extras PA was now the executive producer's assistant. And he was like, wait, I remember, now you're here doing this? That's awesome. And then it's funny because I actually worked with him 4 years later on the BET show. He was one of the second ADs. The network continues to shrink. But, and so I was so nervous because I was working with Tim Matheson, who's a story great actor in film, television director and stuff. But I just listened to what they said, and I just did what I did in the audition. And I actually told people, I was like, this is my first booking, and this is really exciting. And they're going to be excited for you because they've been in that shoe too, especially when you have the opportunity to talk with your scene partners, especially on, you're not dealing with like super A-list or people who may not even communicate with you because they're so focused on their work, or they're just not polite people, or whatever the case may be. But for me, they were like, yeah. So it was really cool to be able to experience that. That's how I eased into it.
That's great. In the Bible, Romans, it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So what's happening is you're insecure, feeling out of place, and the identity is being rocked of who you are in Jesus. So if you're able to hold on to a scripture verse, such as, the Lord has commanded me to be strong and courageous, and then you personalize it, I am strong and courageous. So when you step in and you're feeling those nerves, just continue to repeat over your mind, I am strong and courageous. And then when you meet someone, if you have the ability, take the focus off of yourself. Jesus says we're to love one another as he loves us, and put the focus on them and find out how their day is. As soon as you start asking how their day is, how they're doing, and you get invested in how they're feeling, and this could be the driver, this could be the catering person, craft services, production office, the first AD, all of a sudden it shifts this insecurity over onto them. Now, as an actor, when you show up on set and you are working with A-listers, like when I worked with Frank Langella on Frost Nixon, he didn't speak to us. He was like the actors, he didn't speak to even Patty McCormick, who was playing his wife. He completely was in full on character. And so your job was to bring it. And your job needed to create that emotionalized relationship with them to be able to be fueled, understand the scene, listen to the director, and then trust the moments were going to come off as they came off. So now John Schrader and I, when I worked together, we ran lines in the little people mover from as soon as we got out of the trailer until we got to set. That's when we bantered and ran lines back and forth. Other than that, we didn't run lines. Now, an actor who's just beginning, I remember Liz and I, we worked scenes, we played with the scenes, we did all these things with the scenes before showing up. But that's, every actor is going to need to be different. And then when I was on Jim Carrey's Yes Man, I had to work off of an eye line, a piece of X on the wall, because Jim Carrey was not on second unit, and I had to react to this man doing these crazy Jim Carrey things. And that was very hard for me. So many times you'll also get on a set where you don't have an actor that's working with you. On a movie I did called Forgiven, the other actor completely checked out when it was my time for dialogue and intensities. So then you have to make sure you have an emotionalized relationship. You know what you want to deliver because you are not getting anything from that other actor. So you have, the more preparation you have, the stronger you're going to have the confidence to be able to adapt to the set.
Perfect. Great answer. Katie has a very good question. Do you feel art needs to have a moral agenda to glorify God? Or does the power of the art lie in honesty, reflecting the brokenness of humanity? For example, some might just need an outlet for venting, self-expression, or someone who can relate to that situation. So I guess she's asking, I guess this is more of a, it's not a practical question. This is more of your take and how you approach it as a Christian when it comes to the art of acting.
Well, the art of acting or the art of filmmaking or storytelling is, you're getting into some ideological places there if you want to go down a path of like, how do you interpret this art? Everything's subjective to the person who's watching it. They can come up with their own interpretation as well as the person who's creating it, and they can do whatever they want to do because it's theirs. And as a Christian, I want to do the art that I've been called to do, and have the boundaries put in place if there's something that may not be comfortable for me and where I am with my relationship with God, to be respectful, but also know that each character is telling a story as a part of that story when you're getting into larger things. So there can be some tough situations that you're going to have to navigate as far as what this art is portraying. And before you even get on the set, you should know whether or not it's something that's going to be have an opportunity for you to glorify God and who you are and how you are going to be on set, or if it's something that you shouldn't even really believe that you should be a part of. So I don't think that art has a moral art. God is the ultimate creator. He's the creator of all things, but we live in a world that's broken. So to assume that all art has to have a moral obligation, that's just not true, because, and it's great for art that does, but I think you'll find that most people, well, the art is kind of shifted, but there's always a good versus evil narrative in most things. And there's good versus evil in the Bible. I mean, there's rape and incest and terrible things in the Bible that have happened to parts of humanity, and God was still glorified through the telling of that story. So you look at something like the Book of Eli with Denzel Washington, would you consider that a moral film? Are you looking at it with a judgmental lens because there was profanity and crash killing and deadliness and all those kinds of things? Or Is it that he was protecting the most important book that's ever been written? So it's a good question, but it might be an overthought question, I think, especially when we're Christians and our job is to serve the production itself. And if it's something that we don't feel is within our moral wheelhouse, then we shouldn't be on the set in the first place.
And this is one of the things I wanted to talk on. It was boundaries. And I think this falls under boundaries with your question as well. It's a different directive on it. For you personally, or for all of us personally, we need to make a choice as to what content we will and we will not do. That choice needs to be made today. It needs to be made this week. It needs to be made before you start auditioning and getting scripts. One movie I was in, I was offered a role being produced by the Entourage group, and it had extreme sexual perversion to it. The money was slamming jamming for one day of work. It was like $10,000. And my agent, I was being hip pocketed by Innovative Agency, which is a top 20 agency in LA, which I wanted to be full on with them. And this content was absolutely disgusting. And, but I was confused. Do I do it because I wanted these things, or do I not do it? And I remember praying, and the Lord said to me, and there was no moral, nothing redemptive about this garbage. And the Lord said to me, sin is ugly. And then a friend said to me, it's like you're Jesus standing on the rock and Satan's tempting you. Are you going to take the temptation? And then my agent said to me, Jen, it's like you're on a cliff, and he used the same analogy, and you just need to get a little bit higher. And as soon as he said that, the Holy Spirit spoke to me, you need to pass. And when I passed on that role, my agent dropped me, or the one I was hip pocketed with dropped me. And I was very disappointed. And then a couple months later, out of nowhere, I was direct offered the movie Dune. And that's what launched my career after Frost Nixon. So his timing is not our timing, but we need to know what we will and will not do beforehand. You need to know, will you do a kissing scene? Will you do nudity? Will you do a same-sex scene? You will get auditions this way. And you need to communicate with your agent, or when you are submitting, where your boundaries are. Because as soon as money comes in, an opportunity comes in, and status comes in, it can get very confusing. And if you don't have those boundaries locked and solid, you will be on sinking ground. So that would be something that I would encourage you to do. For me, when you're looking at a film, if there's a redemptive message to it, even if your character is absolutely despicable, there's redemption in the storyline, and then that's on the moral compass. So that's my personal calling. Like Judd Apatow, he has some raunchy content films, but man, each one of those movies got a message to them. And boy, do they have a really good moral message. So you have to say, oh, am I okay with doing that? Is God calling me to do that type of raunchy content? Because the end all, I'm actually impacting people's lives. Different ways of looking at it.
Yeah, it's not easy. So
it's not easy. And everyone has a different journey, and we cannot judge someone else's journey where God is leading them. I had a friend who was on Entourage. She was in a very sexual scene. She didn't want to do it, but she did it anyways. And when she was on that, she became buddies with her, and she walked her through pregnancy. She brought a group of people around her to be able to help deliver her baby and support her baby. If Kimberly was never on that set, she never would have had that opportunity. God works in mysterious ways. You have to listen to him for your own journey.
Wow, what an amazing story. All right, so we're gonna try to fly through a few more.
Sure.
Everybody out there, that's questions are coming in. We're probably not going to be able to get to all of them. If we do not get to your question here on the webinar, I will make sure that Jen and Jim get the questions, and then they can respond to them directly. Okay, so we'll do it through email or something like that.
Okay.
All right, so Katie, do you feel artists should be open about their faith on social media, or should you be more shrewd so that it doesn't potentially turn employers off? Good question.
It's a great question.
It's a really good question. It's where God's leading you. If you feel called to Christian movies and your social media group are Christians, when you are open about your faith, it encourages other people and it builds other people up and you develop a more loyal fan base. If you don't have a group of followers, then if you're lukewarm, you're not going to have a clear direction. I don't think I knew anyone who really lost jobs because they were open about their faith, unless they were negative and demonstrative about it. That's one perspective.
Yeah, I think that there's a way to navigate that, and but I don't think that there's anything wrong with, having your Facebook say that you're a Christian or that you're posting Christian content. Guys, there's Christians in the secular world that work a lot too, believe it or not. One of the biggest casting directors in Atlanta is a powerful Christian, and he casts The Resident, the TV show The Resident.
And Miracles from Heaven.
Yeah, so it's not there. You don't have to be shy about your faith, but you also can navigate it in a way to where you, I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say. Just be careful with how you navigate it when you're in certain situations, but also, trust the prompting of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And you don't want to shy away from, don't compromise your faith for something. But also you can fall into a trap of not all secular people find ways to engage with them where they're at, not try to be at a place where they're not with your spirituality, because it's different for people to listen to somebody talk about constantly hearing from God and like the Holy Spirit prompted me to do this, and like but that doesn't mean that you can't talk that way. It's not what I'm trying to say, but just be careful with how you navigate the certain situations that you might be in, and find the opportunity. Allow God to reveal the opportunity, and where it doesn't have to be a forced opportunity to talk about your faith, because you don't want to be forceful with it. You want it to let God allow it to happen, because it will. It'll happen for you to be able to reveal it.
And when you know who you are, what your brand is, like Carrie Lewis has these beautiful devotions that she'll create, and it's clear her brand is to serve the Christian. And as a result, the content she makes is very clear and very helpful. And then as a result, followers come on because they're looking for that content. So I think it also starts with you identifying what your brand is.
Okay. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. We have a couple questions that are all the same about how practical ways to find who's looking, find auditions, where, there you go. So there's three people that have asked that.
That's great. That's something we wanted to cover. How about you talk first about that?
Well, for network, it's not going to be happening on Actors Access. Not unless you have an agent. If you're going to book things that are network, the majority of the times, of course, there's always outliers, and there are casting directors in certain regions that will post on the Actors Access base.
Who's Tyler Perry's casting director?
Raven Drummer. She'll cast her TV shows, and she'll post them on regular Actors Access. If you go to the Southeast market, you'll see things, and if it says Raven Drummer, that's a Tyler Perry show or movie. And she'll actually try to search out actors, and that's the way for you to submit, where you might get a call, you might get a cast or the email that comes in. And occasionally, especially if you have a unique quality, they'll post on the regular Actors Access. But if they're just looking for actors, they're generally going to go through the agency. So you're not going to find much network stuff on Backstage or on Actors Access unless it's background work. And if you're starting out, there's certainly no reason why you shouldn't be getting on set in that regard. So not much luck in the world of getting onto a network without having an agency, right. But with faith-based, Jen's the expert at that.
So faith-based, because you have the 3 tiers that I was talking about earlier, the highest tier, like the Kendrick Brothers film, War Room, Courageous, or the Irwin Brothers films like Mom's Night Out, or God's Not Dead, Pure Flix films. those all go through a casting director. So you find out who that casting director is, and then you contact them. Beverly Holloway likes to be contacted via snail mail with postcards every once in a while, letting her know what you're up to. If you stay on her radar, it's helpful. She will submit on Breakdown Express, which will go out to the agents looking for the best actor possible. And then she will also submit on Actors Access.
That's the regular, yeah.
And so you can search on Actors Access, Beverly Holloway, and you could see the submission, and then you could submit your headshot. You want to attach a demo reel or a video. It will allow all of the submissions, you will come up to the top of the search results because video is a part of that algorithmic equation. So Katrina Cook, she's another amazing casting director. She's in Texas. And so you want to take a look at your films in the Christian market, go to IMDb and do the research. You need to do the work. Find out who the casting directors are, reach out to them on Facebook, see if you could join their groups and participate and interact with where they're posting. It takes hustle because your headshot should be, the headshot that you're submitting on Actors Access should potentially be your social media headshot. So when you're interacting, they're seeing the image. So when they see the image come through a submission, it helps them remember. Okay. Now that's your third tier, or your top tier. The low budget, the no budgets, if you're just starting out, you need to get credits. Guys, Facebook groups. Go and search faith-based films, Christian films. And every filmmaker who is starting out, who does not have money, who has GoFundMe, Kickstarter campaigns, they're posting them there. But eventually they're going to make their film. You develop relationships with them and you interact with them and you find ways that you can be of service to them. Maybe there's something that you can do to help their production. And that's how I ended up getting the majority of my work, was developing relationships. So those would be two ways on how to navigate bookings in the faith-based market.
Awesome. Great. Well, we got a couple more minutes left, so we're going to try to fly through these. Any advice on how to seek out and approach acting schools for training?
Research, type in acting schools in blank in Google, and whatever's available in your area is going to come up, and then you just call them and say, I'd like more information. It's just as easy as trying to order a pizza, to be honest with you. You just have to search it out and go for it. When you're first starting out, I think that you want to try and find, I would still recommend a local community theater, or if you can go to a community college that has maybe an acting class, there's going to be something there that you could probably benefit from. And you can also train with this person right here. She has acting courses that she has from her inspiring actors. Sorry, audiences is public speaking. So you can also search for online courses too. So
I think one of the coolest things is if you are able to get physically in class,
Mm-hmm.
where you're physically in front of people, that is going to be your number one that you want to be looking for. And just like Jim said, acting classes in your area, and then just go for it, because
they're there. Somebody has a studio.
Yeah, and look at it as a tool belt. Every teacher is going to give you a new tool or sharpen a tool that currently exists. Okay?
Fantastic. All right, we're going to do one more, and then everybody else, some of them, I'm trying to go through these. Some of them are, you've sort of answered them in other questions and things like that. But I'll still send them to you, so that way if you want to address something specific, like there's some people from Chicago that are wondering if you have any advice specific to Chicago area as far as connections or things like that. So I'll make sure that I get you their information. The last one that we're going to go with is Rachel. Rachel says, I have an agent in Atlanta and have a few guest star auditions for shows like The Resident, but haven't landed the big job yet. My agent hasn't been sending me very many auditions lately. My advice, she's looking for advice on how to better communicate that she's still here. So maybe she feels invisible to her agent, and she wants to know like a correct way or a proper way to to inquire and say, hey, I'm still here, I'm still ready?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll just say this: if you're getting a guest star audition in Atlanta, you have a good agent, and that's a lot of times guest stars are flown in. Sometimes co-stars are flown into the Atlanta area. I work locally to the area, even though I live in New York. I drive down for callbacks. I drive, so if you're getting a guest star audition that's a self-tape in Atlanta, you have a good agent. If you want to have more communication, they're very busy. They know that you're there. I'm almost curious as to who you're with. But I would say one of the better ways is to ask them for advice about stuff that you might have. Say, have you seen can you go over my demo reel with me? Can we set up a time to chat real quick? Or because they're extremely busy. Right now is probably the best time for you to do that because there's such a downtime right now. There's not very many auditions happening. But when's the last time you had your headshots done? Just wanting to check in. Because what agents aren't really going to be interested in is, hi, how you doing? What'd you have for breakfast today? Like you have a business relationship with them that should be quite cordial. And there are a lot more female actors than there are male actors. So it's extremely, the ratio of auditions going out for male actors and female actors is
night and day different.
Night and day different.
Like I've got one audition a month, and Jim.
I average about at least 5 to 6 auditions a month, at least. So that's at least one a week I get. But Jen, she's blonde hair, blue eyes. Like if they're looking for somebody specific, they might already just be going outsourcing, or it's just it's more of a difficult game for young ladies and women than it is for men to get the auditions, and that's just because of the specificity of what they need in the female.
And some tips on how to be able to communicate to your agent. If you finished an acting class or you're just attending in a class, hey, want to let you know I'm studying with blah, 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 or I just finished studying with blah, blah, blah.
Here's my new resume with that information on it. Make sure you, so you can update it. And then, if you get it, okay, thanks, then that's great, because that means they saw your email and they're changing their system, and agents love to get emails about how you're taking control of your own career. So it's your responsibility.
You could say, are my headshots working? Do I need to get new headshots? The agent will know because the agent is submitting. And if the agent is not getting auditions for you, it's because your headshot is not working. So you need to change up your look or change up the style of the shot.
Yeah.
Some very practical things. That headshot is night and day killer. It opens the door or it won't open the door. You probably are being submitted, but the casting director and the producer are not selecting you because of your headshot. And that stinks. And it could be just like Jim said, you're in a very saturated marketplace.
Right.
So those would be a couple tips.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I'm going to just say thank you for everybody. And people, if your question was not answered, I promise you, we will get those questions. Oh, go ahead.
I can't speak for Jim, but I would rather answer the questions now via email, just because I won't physically have the time to email.
Okay.
So, but I know Jim has some things to do, so I don't want to.
That's all right. So instead of anybody writing any more questions, let's just roll through, because we can actually read them too.
Okay. Do you want to address the Chicago question?
So Chicago, Maggie Malone. Maggie Malone is used to be a part of the AMTC family, and Malone, Maggie Malone, reach out to her on Facebook and contact Maggie and ask Maggie if she has any suggestions about faith-based. She operates mostly in the Chicago market. That's where she's based out of. She used to be a team leader in AMTC, and she's a part of our family. So reach out to Mags.
Okay.
And tell her that I asked you to reach out. And my last name is Gotzon, Gotzon, and she'll love to help you.
Great.
Yeah, so the next I'm seeing is how to keep your ambition, dreams, goals making sure that they're God-given and that that they're in line with God's will and while working towards those dreams. Okay. One of the ways that deal with acting, there's a book called How to Succeed in Hollywood Without Selling Your Soul. Is that what it is?
Losing Your Soul.
Without Losing Your Soul by Ted Baer with the one
Movie Guide.
Movie Guide. So that would be a great resource for you to read if you're looking into that. The other thing is
say it again a little slower so they can.
How to Succeed in Hollywood Without Losing Your Soul. The other thing is to have a community that you can bounce those ideas off of. Say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. If you're all men should have a male mentor and all women should have some female mentors that they can bounce ideas off of. It's crucial.
Community will serve
right.
that for you.
Absolutely. So that would be so that you can bounce your ideas off and get information, because God works through relationships. So he's going to work through other people to help you on that journey. So that would be my answer is to, yeah.
I think that's wonderfully said, honey.
Okay.
Obviously the next one, Joy wants to know if 47 is too old to start acting. I think we all can be in agreement and say, absolutely not. There's actually people out there that they probably don't even realize didn't start until very late in their career, and you probably thought they were acting forever, and their Grammy,
right.
or their I guess a Grammy, because I'm a music guy.
Well, there's not Tony, but Emmy-winning actress that didn't start till she was 47. One of them recently, she passed away like a year ago, but she didn't start till she was in her late 40s. So yeah, it's never too old. You're never too old. We're in acting classes where there's people in it that are in their 80s. So nope.
And they come up with their cane. and they work really hard to be able to be heard. So there's no age. You believe that you're too old, and that's a lie from Satan.
Absolutely. What are your do's and don'ts when it comes to film set etiquette? Some of those you're going to have to figure out, but never assume you know who somebody is or what their place is on set. That would be my biggest thing, because you never know. You could be talking to the executive producer, you could be talking to the writer, you never know who you're talking to. So the thing that you should do is treat everybody with the eyes of Christ and be a servant. If you're constantly trying to serve, you're going to be great. But the best way you can serve is also understand that there is a chain of command and there's also a hierarchy. So the best way for you to serve that is to not try to overstep and take over, especially when you're first starting out. We always hear about actors who take over, and it's not a good experience. So collaboration is different than having thoughts is something you do in a private way with somebody on set, with your director or whatever. And
when you show up to a set that actually has a crew, you show up and there's people there. There's more people there than 5 people. The second AD, the second assistant director, is your point of contact, or the key PA, the key production assistant. So that's who you speak to. Any questions? And they will relay it up the line to get you the information that you need. If you have a question about when you show up on set, when you're about to shoot and you're rehearsing, that's the timing when you ask the director about your scene question. Don't ask him earlier in the day, because he's working on so many other things that it might be distractive.
Yeah. I forgot. I had a thought. I lost it. But yeah. So.
The other as a background actor, when you are asked to bring clothing, you want to bring it on a hanger inside a clothing garment bag, and you want to have shoes and accessories to accompany it all. And you show up and you have everything prepared, ready to go. When you're on a 5-person or a very low budget faith-based film that doesn't have that, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to show up with your clothing already pressed, ready as if you're about to go camera ready. And you show it and you lay it out on a couch, or you lay it out on a table. So when the director's ready, he'll come over, he'll look at it all, and he'll go, okay, select this one. Right? You have to assume that there won't be wardrobe there to help you when you're on a low budget project.
Okay. Moving from your hometown to Los Angeles. I'll answer this last one here right now. This will be the last one. and where it says, I am more into modeling, but I was told I have to combine acting with modeling. Is that true? The answer is yes.
Absolutely, yes.
You cannot sell or have anything coming out of your eyes unless you have some foundation that has to do with portraying, because you're selling a product, you're selling a character. You have to, you're telling a story through your eyes, and having the foundation of acting is, I believe it to be essential to being able to do the other mediums in the arts. That's a better place.
Absolutely. Carrie Lewis and Dennis Carpenter are experts in this area field. And when I was studying, or I was one of the teachers at AMTC, Carrie and Glennis both helped me greatly when I booked my first modeling job. And so I saw the boards of what the photographer was trying to capture. And then I said, okay, how do I get into that character's mindset? And then I would think on words, think on visualizations, and I would literally act out in my mind, which is called an inner monologue. And what I'm thinking came across my face, such like, I'm strong and courageous, I'm bold, I'm a tiger, I'm a lioness. And I would imagine myself going through this field, and I would just allow my imagination to create. And as I would look in the camera and the wind was blowing and the camera was snapping, and you look at this image and you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? But it was captivating because those were the images in my mind. Another image, I was looking up to Christ and imagining his love and his radiant love and just his power and and that's an inner monologue, as I was talking to Jesus in my mind. And you capture that image and this light of Christ. So you keep talking to yourself through inner monologue of creativity based on character development.
Fantastic. Wow. That was jam-packed. It surely did not feel like the time that went by, because it was so very good. Jenn, Jim, thank you so much. I know so many people got so much out of this and we're so blessed. Thank you for being with us. And I would love to have you guys again sometime in the future when you guys have some time in between all the things that you're doing, because this was really, really good for the Shine community. Absolutely.
Love that. And reach out to us on social media. I'm on Facebook, Jenn Gotzon, 2 N's in Jenn, Jenn Gotzon. I'm also on Instagram.
Yeah, and Jim E. Chandler. I don't use Facebook often. I check it sometimes, but I will, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to leave everybody with 2 things that were said. It's a summary of something Jenn was talking about, and then something that Jim said. I think it sums it all up. It stood out to me, and I know people were blessed by it. Jenn, you were talking about how important it is to be real, to be vulnerable, and to be human. So important in what you guys do. And then Jim, you had mentioned, this is so good, acting is about giving. Being a Christian is about giving. So talk about bridging a gap into the art and what you do in your craft to what it means to be a Christian. Those were amazing things that stood out to me. So again, thank you so much for this time. Everybody, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Everybody.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.